Good morning, class. This is your third lesson on the second chapter, that is democracy. What is democracy and why democracy? So let us revise quickly what we have learned in the earlier two classes. In the earlier two classes, we have discussed the meaning of democracy, that it is a form of government in which rulers are elected by the people, and we have seen the three features of democracy, that in a democracy, major decision must be taken by the elected rulers. Second, there should be free and fair electoral competition. Third, political equality, that is one person, one vote, one value. Now we are going to discuss the fourth feature of democracy. Before moving to the fourth feature of democracy, we need to understand some of the characteristics of democratic and non-democratic government that will help you to understand the fourth feature in a better way. So first feature in a non-democratic government is media is under control of the government. That media cannot criticize the government. Second, compromising of independent institutions. As we know, in India there are three main organs of the government, that is legislative, executive and judiciary, and all these bodies work according to their jurisdiction. But in non-democratic country they may or may not exist, and if exist they may work according to the dictator or the ruler. Third, compromising basic rights of the citizen. Every democratic country provides some basic right to the citizen, but in non-democratic countries they may or may not have some basic rights. Fourth one is they use unfair practices to win elections so that they can remain in power for long. But all these things cannot be accepted in a democratic form of government. In a democratic government, there are also some characteristics like that the government has to respect some basic rules and basic rights of citizens as provided by the constitution, and with that they has to respect or think for the needs and demands of the minorities as well. Third, office bearers must follow rights and responsibilities as set by the constitution. They have to work within the limit framework set by the constitution, and all the officials and the leaders are accountable to the people and to the independent institution as well. They are accountable, that is they are answerable for their each action and work they do. So now, after dealing with the characteristics of democratic and non-democratic government, let us focus on the fourth feature of the democracy, that is rule of law and respect for rights. You must have studied about rule of law in class 8. If you don't remember, let me revise it for you. A rule of law means no person or government is above the law, and no government or its official can enforce laws that are unfair or unjust. Now, let us understand this feature with the example of Zimbabwe. What happened there after independence from white minority in 1980? The country has been ruled by ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF, the full form is Zimbabwe African National Union Patriotic Front. It is a political organization that led the freedom struggle against the white minority. And the leader of that ZANU-PF party was Robert Mugabe, who ruled the country, that is Zimbabwe, till 2017. Can you imagine that one person for so long, how he was able to manage to rule the country? So what was the reason? That in election or during election process, he used unfair practices to win the election, and he changed the constitution many times to increase the power of the president and make him less accountable. As you know, in a democracy, with the increase of power, you become more responsible, you become more answerable to the people for each action done by you. But here what happened? He changed the constitution and make him more powerful and less accountable. That cannot be accepted in democratic government. As we know, in a democracy, no one is permanent winner or no one is permanent loser. Opposition parties should have equal chance to win the election as the ruling party. But to remain in power, what happened in Zimbabwe? The opposition party workers were harassed and their meetings were disrupted. Public protest and demonstrations against the government considered illegal. There was a law that limits the right to criticize the president, and media was completely under the control of the government. That is, television and radio were completely under the control of the government, and they have to give only the ruling party's version. There are independent newspaper also, but the government harasses those journalists who went against them. The government ignored some judgment of the court and they pressurized the judges to give the verdict in their favor. The above example of Zimbabwe shows that popular approval of the rulers is necessary in a democracy, but it is not sufficient. Why? Because popular governments can be undemocratic, popular leaders can be autocratic, and if we wish to assess a democracy, it is important to look at the elections, but it is really equally important to look before and after the elections. And there should be sufficient room for normal political activity. And this requires that state should respect some basic rights of the citizen. And as we have discussed earlier also, that in a democracy there are certain basic rights which are provided to the citizens. What are those rights? Like, they should be free to think, to have opinions, to express these opinions in public, to form associations, and to protest and take other political action. And everyone should be treated equally in the eyes of law. And all these basic rights must be protected by an independent judiciary. After studying the fourth feature of democracy, we can say that there are some conditions that apply to the way a government is run after the election. That is, a democratic government cannot do whatever it likes. It has to work according to the law set by the constitution. Then it has to respect basic rules according to which the government will run. and has to think for the minorities classes also. They need to make policies for them also. And most important, every decision has to go through a number of consultation and discussion so that best result can come out of that. And every office bearers has certain rights and responsibilities assigned by the constitution, and each of these is accountable not only to the people but also to the other independent officials. So this gives us a summary of the fourth feature, that is, a democratic government rules within the limits set by constitutional law and citizens' rights. So in this way we have completed this topic, and what we have dealt with the fourth feature of the democracy, that is rule of law and respect for rights. So here are some assignment work for you. Please do it in a separate notebook of political science. Thank you students, and have a nice day.